Okay, everybody, we are back. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter with Knoxville, Nate, and Big Joe getting ready to talk about the world sports. We have a loaded show of NCAA and NFL football, but before we get started, we have some breaking news from my partner in Knoxville, Nate. Go with it, Nate.
Yeah, apparently we've got some coaching news in the NCAA football world, and it's in your neck of the woods, Mr. Joseph. Randy Edsall has decided to step down after Game 2. Game 1, let's be honest, was embarrassing.
Game 2 was 2.
They got blown out by Fresno State, who's since proven to be a decent team. But in week 2, Randy Edsall and the UConn Huskies go down to Holy Cross.
Right.
And I guess they're like, what the hell are we paying you for when you can't even, put a competitive team out there? And he was already announced he was going to retire at the end of the season. And now he quit, and he's gone. So that didn't take long for we knew the end of the Randy Edsall era was probably coming this year. Then he announced it was coming this year, and now it's here.
Well, I'm glad the athletic director probably went up to him and said, this is going to be a joke. Just leave now. I mean, I'm glad. And whether it be a booster, whether it be, somebody went to him, got in his ear and said, this is going to be a joke all year. I mean, can they get worse? Probably not. So it doesn't matter who's coach. You could have the people in the stands call the plays at this point. Who cares? UConn has not been relevant since he left, went to go to North Carolina State. He had the program going in the right direction.
He went to Maryland.
Oh, Maryland, I'm sorry. Then he went to, we went to, when Rensselaer Field went up, you thought you were going to attract people. They couldn't even keep in-state kids coming there. I mean, it's a basketball school. It's owned by the boys and women's teams up there. They should think about stepping down a peg, at least to regroup for a couple of years, because they're just not attracting the type of players they're going to need, and it's just a joke. It's in a state where we don't have a lot of football tradition outside of Yale. It's amazing that this UConn program is still relatively popular, can I say?
I just want to know what happened, because he had them rolling, competing for national. They were competing for national titles pretty much, or playing pretty well, and then they joined big boy football and became an independent program.
They actually beat Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame.
The Big East in 2004 and won 2 conference championships, and then appeared in the 2010 Fiesta Bowl, and since then they just disappeared.
I think it had to do with coaching. They could not get the right coach in there that could keep the program going, and it's kind of an outpost. I mean, there's no real rivalry. No one really gets behind it. I don't know. It's just you're not gonna. It's one of those programs you're not going to get a good coach to come and stay. If anything else, it's going to be a stepping stone. If you're lucky enough to get a good coach, he's going to be out of there in 2 or 3 years, and the players know that. And there's just no way they can compete. I mean, they should be, playing in, Colonial with Delaware, UMass, those type of teams.
Yeah, that's. I think that would be better for them at this point, for sure.
Yes, I mean, it just you can't compete here, and it is one thing that's depressing about being in the state of Connecticut is the fact that if we go back 30 years or 20 years, when the Big East was really around and they had the chance to bring Penn State in, and you would have had Penn State, you would have had Miami, you would have had Virginia Tech, you would have had West Virginia, you would have had Syracuse, the Big East could have exploded. But the basketball schools who were going to be shut out of the money, Villanova, Georgetown, those kind of guys, blocked it. And Penn State went to the Big Ten. BC would have stayed then. I mean, think of that conference right there. That's a pretty damn good conference right there. especially and they lost. Joe Paterno wanted to come to the Big East. He was ready to come to the Big East. And like I said, Georgetown and Villanova, St. John said, "Well, we're not going to get any of that money, so why should we let these guys come in to our backyard?"
Yeah, pretty stupid if you ask me.
It is. It is. I'm sorry, Georgetown. I'm sorry, Villanova. You're never going to play. You never know. That's 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Who knows? By now, they could have had big time programs down there. St. John's, not so much. Seton Hall, not so much. But you had Pittsburgh there, too. So, think of that conference. That's a pretty damn good conference. But, So, goodbye, Edsel. We hardly knew you the second time around. He did put them on the map for a couple of years, but after he went to Maryland and went to the ACC, took the big money in the ACC, and couldn't get it back going.
No, it's just it's kind of shocking stepping down after 2 games, but if they're ready to move on and he's ready to move on, why not do it now and cut the cord?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they can, look, maybe there's a young coach that they have on their staff that they're excited about, or maybe they can start the search and see who's out there. So it might as well beat everybody to the punch, and the people that might be losing their jobs at the end of the year, who knows. One thing we want to go back a little bit. We got to do a lot of NFL tonight, but I wanted to touch base on the NCAA weekend with you. I know I watched your show yesterday, a very good show, man coverage, a lot of fun. A lot of good things coming out of there. I want to talk about a couple of rules things with you that bothered me this weekend. The first is I saw a lot more, or maybe it's just me, but you're a former defensive back. I saw a lot more defensive pass interferences this weekend where plays looked like they could become big gainers, and the guy was just, well, I'll just interfere and we'll live to learn another day. Am I just too sensitive to it? Has it been going on at this rate so much? Or, it's a good play when you think about it, but it also takes away from some of the game.
Yeah, I saw some, some games where they let them kind of fight a little bit. Honestly, the Ohio State game specifically, there was a couple of calls that they could have made against the Buckeyes, and you could have said that it was pass interference, but they didn't really. There was 2 or 3 plays that Minnesota fans probably would have loved to have seen Laundry come out on, but I kind of like it when they let them play. So I'm more for not calling it, because I know how hard it is to play against it. But I watched the Notre Dame Florida State game right before we came on the air. It was pretty clean. I didn't see too many calls in that game either way with pass interference. There was a couple, but nothing egregious. And, I watched several of the other games from start to finish. The Clemson Georgia game was pretty clean, pass interference too. But, it's something that they're going to call more and more, because they're told to favor the offense.
Yeah, it kind of favors the defense, actually, because the fact of the matter is, they're only giving up 15 yards instead of
in college. That's a technique that is taught. If you're getting beat and it looks like they're going to score a touchdown, man, you're supposed to tackle them.
And that's my point of it. It's like
15 yards, and I like that, honestly, because I feel like in the NFL, if there's a questionable call. And it's 50 yards downfield. Well, instead of it being a 15-yard penalty, it's a 50-yard penalty.
I totally agree with you.
So that's why I favor the college rule. Give them the 15 yards. Let's play football. And in the NFL, you can flip the entire field with one bad pass interference call.
Yeah, I know, but it's just like, to me, maybe I was just too sensitive to it this weekend. I'm going to give it a couple weeks, and maybe I was just when I was, I would watch the Wisconsin game totally, the Georgia game totally. I watched the Ohio State game totally. I watched Notre Dame game totally, and there were certain times when it seemed to happen. I was like, well, Jesus, try and play some defense. But I get the point. If that's all I'm going to give up, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to give up the touchdown. So. I get the point, and I understand. I totally agree with you because I've seen Super Bowls get tipped on a 50-yard pass interference call, and that's not fair either. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I was just too sensitive to it. And the other thing is the targeting call. I'm going to go back to the call late in the game on Penn State, their best defensive player, when he's going to be missing for the first half of next week. And to me, he hit, first of all, the quarterback wasn't going down. The quarterback was not surrendering. He was a runner. He went for his shoulder, and he hit him in the left shoulder, and then his helmet slid up and hit him in the helmet. And, I mean, I'll give the coach of Wisconsin did a great job of calling that timeout and letting, I think, the crowd sway the referees because they were able to show they showed the replay. They showed it in slow motion, which made it look a lot worse than it was. But I mean, with the I understand why we want this targeting stuff taken out, but also you got to take a look and really say, what did he hit his shoulder pad first and it slid up. What's he supposed to do?
No, there needs to be a change to the rule, in my opinion, similar to what they've done in basketball, where there's a flagrant 1 and a flagrant 2. If they call targeting and they need to review it and then determine whether the guy was trying to do it and intentionally lowering his head and like just doing an egregious play. Well, then that's something that's worth getting thrown out. But those plays are bang, bang, and this is football, and things happen really fast. And to throw a kid out for doing what he's supposed to do, he can't control if somebody ducks down or if his shoulder pad bounces off the guy and momentum causes his helmet to bang against him after that. That shouldn't be something that causes someone to get thrown out for and have to miss an entire game. I think I think the rule needs to be changed. I think it's a mistake, and I think it's really hurting the college game. I mean, the NFL, you watch NFL games, there's no targeting rule at all. There's a 15-yard unnecessary contact, leading with the helmet, whatever. They have their own penalties, but there's no targeting call. And I think that's for good reason. It's ruining college football, in my opinion, in a lot of these games by throwing out players that aren't doing something on purpose.
Well, yeah, and yeah, exactly. You are figuring intent, and you can't figure intent. I mean, what would be better for him to do at Mertz? Would it be better for him to go low and maybe take his knees out? I mean, it's like I said, he hit him in the shoulder. He didn't hit him in the head. He didn't hit him in the knee. He hit him in the shoulder, and his momentum carried him into it. I just thought it was kind of, like I said, I'll give Chris a lot of credit. Call that timeout. He knew his crowd was on his side, and he knew that was his best chance of getting that thing overturned. But it was a huge penalty late in the game. Thank God for Penn State that they got the interception and kept Wisconsin from going in. But it was a game changer. And, at that point, I just think you got to look at it and say, wait a minute, where did he hit? He hit him on the other part of his body and it bounced. Come on. You don't have to go there with it. But overall, I thought it was a great first weekend. A lot of questions and a lot of answers. I mean, you got Georgia, whose defense looks like it's ready for the big time. Don't know much about their offense. I mean, although JT Daniels looked pretty good. But one thing I will say about Clemson, they wish they had who was it? Chaz Mercy. What's the guy who's on Wisconsin now? Chaz,
the running back.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether having him would have made any difference. I mean, there was nowhere to run. It's not like the running backs that Clemson has aren't talented. It's not like DJ Uiagalelei hasn't proven to be a good quarterback. There was no time to throw each time they called a passing play and that he dropped back and DJU was trying to throw it. He didn't have time to even find the first read, much less a second or third read. And then if you go back and watch the tape, there's no holes to run through. I mean, they ran for 2 yards all game.
Yeah, that's huge.
I'm not blaming the running backs. I mean, there's no holes. and they've got to figure something out on their offensive line really quick, or else they'll be in trouble. However, they play in the ACC, which sucks. So, they'll probably not lose an ACC game, even though that offensive line, looked like garbage.
I totally agree. There was a great stat on Packer and Durham this morning where they said something like the ACC is 2-18 when playing ranked opponents outside their conference on opening weekend. 2-18 since like 1980.
Well, this was not a good showing this weekend for the ACC. I mean, Clemson, it was a close game, 10-3. It's not like they got blown out or anything. But as Herb Street said during the game, it kind of feels like they're down by 30. Yeah. And I agreed. I don't usually agree with Herbie, but honestly, the Clemson team didn't get past the 50, and it did feel like they were down. When it was 10-0 or what have you, it felt like it was 30-0. And then you had Miami, who, no one really expected them to win, but you expected them to show up and make the game competitive. And it felt like, Alabama was playing Louisiana Monroe because it wasn't even a ball game. So Miami let them down big time. And then UNC was supposed to be, a contender for their, for the ACC championship this year. And they get beat in week 1 by, a Virginia Tech team that's definitely unproven and coming off a 5-6 campaign.
And Sam Howell's supposed to be a Heisman favorite, and not by the looks of him that night, though. No way at all. So they
had trouble moving the ball all game, and he, to me, looked like he's regressed. But people forget they lost a lot of talent. I mean, De'Ami Brown, the wide receiver, very talented. They had 2,000 backs from last year that both got drafted, and you lose 2 guys that both surpassed 1,000 yards. You're going to have trouble replacing those guys.
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, we have Mississippi tonight, closing out the weekend. I'll tell you one thing.
This is the ACC's last chance. They got Louisville versus Ole Miss, and if Louisville loses to Ole Miss, it's going to be a complete and utter embarrassment.
But I tell you, it was a great weekend. I mean, I think having the crowds back really pumped up everybody, even watching on TV. I think it was a great and having. I give credit to a lot of the teams, like the Clemson, Georgia, like even Notre Dame, Florida State, name recognition opponents playing each other on the first weekend instead of some of these teams that took on, the poor sisters of the poor. I mean, I understand BC and a few of these teams. BC wants to get some wins. They need to get some wins. But let's look realistically, too. I mean, BC, do you think you're going to compete for a national championship? How about getting out there and bringing in a good opponent? And
you're not going to get better. You're not going to get better at playing those teams. You've got to. The only way to see where you're at and to improve is to play against good competition. And that's why I give Florida State credit for going out and playing Notre Dame in game 1. I mean, a lot of coaches probably wouldn't have wanted to do that. No. But I got to give Mike Norvell credit because I know they lost, and the end of that game was kind of crazy. But regardless, I don't think that loss hurt Florida State. I think that
not at all.
It showed them they can play with a top 10 ranked team, and they may have found their quarterback too, because I don't think they're going to put that. They're not going to go back and put the original starter back in. I think they'll stick with Milton from here on out. And
God bless him. I hope he stays safe and healthy and has a great year. So, all right, let's get into the NFL. Like I said.
Yeah, speaking of health too, in the NFL, one team that me and you both picked to be a strong contender this year in all of the NFL and the AFC, as well as for the Super Bowl, is the Ravens.
Yep.
And that was before J.K. Dobbins goes down and is lost for the season. Well, that's also before your other running back, Justice Hill, goes down, and now he is out for the season. So today, the Ravens were hosting open tryouts for their running back position. So Le'Veon Bell was there, Devontae Freeman was there, Elijah Holyfield was there.
O.J. Simpson was there.
Yeah, I mean, that list doesn't really reassure me from losing J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill. I mean, Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman, and Elijah Holyfield all got either cut or weren't even on a roster a week ago. So that's not really giving me much hope for their running game.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell, he hasn't been relevant since he went to the Jets. And, you know, he went to Kansas City, and you thought maybe, just maybe, under Andy Reid. Because let's face facts, when he was with Pittsburgh, he was a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. You know, you can't ask for a guy who runs a better screen pass or screen game than Andy Reid. And he couldn't even find a way to use this kid. So, yeah, you're in trouble if you got Le'Veon Bell coming in. Unless you're going to give it to him, you know, 50 times a game and take 2 yards to carry. That's fine. So
they're in trouble.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on them because we're going to do the AFC tonight. We'll start with the East. One thing that I was going a little bit crazy on last week, and I got into a debate with somebody on Facebook who was the Brady making Belichick debate, and I'm just sick of these stupid debates because they get nowhere anyways. But my last question to him was, how many defenses did Tom Brady call for the Patriots? How many drafts did he run? How many trades did he make? The guy's been a great player. Why do we have to elevate him into more than what he was and try and take away something from the guy who made him a star? I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, you know, we'll see. I've got to be honest. We haven't really discussed it deep on this show. I'm still somewhat shocked that they moved on from Cam Newton. I thought that eventually Mac Jones would take over the starting role, but I don't really see the benefit of cutting Cam, a week before the first game. I mean, why not trot Cam out there if he's back to form and plays well? Well, then you have Mac Jones behind him to take over when he gets hurt or to take over anytime he falters. But now it's Mac Jones or bust. And, I hope he's ready, because if he's not, Brian Hoyer is going to have to be trotting out there, and that's not what they want.
Well, in thinking about it, and really, and I'm trying to get into Bill Belichick's mind, which is totally useless because the man forgot more about football than I'll ever know, and no one can get into this guy's mind. But one thing that does make sense to me, and I think about this, a couple of years ago when Brady was serving out a suspension, they had Garoppolo for a couple of games and Jacoby Brissett for a couple of games. The thing about Belichick, at least as I think as he's evolved as a coach, is he doesn't mind losing in September if it's going to benefit him in November and December. So if the plan was to get Mac Jones ready to play in November and December, and he's been pretty good so far in the preseason games, at least he showed up, and Cam Newton hasn't been playing. Why not take the risk of maybe, depending on your defense, if you come out of September 2-2 or 3-1, great, you're in good position. But the only thing is, it becomes a failure if you come out 1-3 or 0-4.
Yeah, and then what do you do? What do you do when they're 1-3 or 0-4? Do you pull Mac Jones and insert Brian Hoyer? No, I mean you have to keep rolling with them.
No, you're right. This is Mac Jones' team now. But maybe what he's been seeing, he had Cam all last year. He's had Cam in the offseason. He's had Cam, with whatever went on with the COVID stuff, and maybe he just got sick of it and said, you know what? This is eventually going to be my quarterback. I'm gonna up it up now. I'm gonna push my chips to the middle of the table. Like you said, he's got his defense back, and he's going to depend on that run game and see what he can get. It's going to be tough this weekend. It's going to be a real big test because you've got Miami to start off, and Miami has always been, no matter who the coach was down there. My God, even with Adam Gase was able to pull a couple upsets against him. So this is going to be a real test this weekend because he has to start off with Miami. And I think it's going to be a really big time to see if Mac Jones is ready, because he's going against his protege, who we both like. and we'll see what happens. And Alabama against Bama quarterbacks.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I like Tua a lot better, and I like Mac Jones in that matchup. But we'll see what happens. Maybe he's ready. But it leads me to the same thing that I'm concerned about in NYC with my Jets. Zach Wilson played well in the preseason, but what happens when he gets hurt, or what happens if he starts to falter? He's got nobody behind him. They have no other. They don't even have a veteran quarterback on the roster that can, show him the damn playbook, or show him the iPad after a play and tell him what he did wrong. I mean, Mike White is going to, question Zach Wilson. I mean, he's taken the same amount of snaps in the regular season. So I don't know. And the Jets are really banged up. So this isn't a good start in New York. Jamison Crowder is already out. Denzel Mims is probably not going to play. Michael Carter is questionable. P. Ryan's questionable. Carl Lawson's lost for the season. Quinnen Williams is may not play. Jared Davis is on IR. Ashton Davis is on IR. I mean, Vinny Curry is out. This team was thin to begin with, bro. And they're going to be struggling to get 53 guys on the sideline.
I agree with you. I feel so sorry for Robert Saleh, because I think he has the potential to be a really good head coach, and he's being handed kind of half a team this year. I mean, if behind the scenes the Johnsons have talked to Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and said, okay, look, we know we're going to be terrible this year, fine, but we all know that this has been a team that we could say is mercurial, if not really screwed up. It's like you never know who they'll fire, when they'll fire, if they'll fire. They listen to their fans a lot, and it's going to be – I don't think we're going to hear a lot of JETS, Jets for the right reason. And it's going to be a tough year for them, especially in a division where, look, I do think whether Mac Jones turns out to be the second coming or Brady Jr. or nothing close to Brady Jr., I think we saw what Belichick did last year. So he's going to be at least in the playoff run. Buffalo, we already know, is the second or third best team in the conference, and in top 5 in the NFL. And, then you got Miami who's on its way up. So I think it's going to be a long year for the Jets. Long, long year.
Yeah, we're going to see week 1, what the Zach Wilson factor is, because he's going against the guy that the Jets shipped out of town in Sam Darnold. And, I'm not a big Sam Darnold fan, and I think he sucks. But this might be a game he can win, because the Jets might be worse than the Panthers.
Yeah, for sure. Miami, we just touched on a little bit when we were talking about New England. Tua is going to be the guy who now has a full season. There's no Fitzpatrick to go back to. When you look at that offense, their defense, I think, is going to be fine. They got a defensive-minded coach. What do you think about their offense, and what do you think about Tua?
I think their offense has improved. I think they have more targets this year for Tua, so I think that helps a lot. They've got Will Fuller is going to be there eventually, but they drafted Jalen Waddle. That was their number 1 pick overall. Jalen Waddle is played with Tua before, and he's probably the most talented wide receiver in that draft, either him or Jamar Chase, who can't catch the football. So I like this team better with Jalen Waddle on it. I also like Devontae Parker. Preston Williams has at times shown that he can do it, but some of their weapons are already injured. They've got Lynn Bowden on IR. Alan Hearns is on IR. Like I said, Will Fuller is still suspended. So that's 3 big-time wideouts that could help Tua's progression that won't be there. So the good news is they do have Malcolm Brown, the guy that came over from the Rams. They've got Myles Gaskin, so the running game should be better. But we'll see what happens. I don't know what to expect, and I'm very interested to see this first game to determine which team is more ready to be towards the top in the AFC East, either the Patriots or the Dolphins.
Now, we both have ultimate respect for what's going on with the Bills up there. What is the one thing you see that could hold them back?
Man, nothing at this point. I mean, maybe the lack of a run game in the last couple of years. I think that's been the one issue, is that they haven't had a consistent run game, and that's problematic when everybody's now gunning for you. You're not going to sneak up on anybody. You're going to get the best shot that everybody's got each week. And the problem is if you're ahead and you're trying to milk the clock at the end of the game, well, if you can't run for 4 or 5 yards a carry, you're going to have to be throwing the ball and stopping the clock and trying to get first downs through the air, which, as Woody used to say, only 3 things that can happen when you throw the football, and 2 of them are bad. So you want to be able to run the ball, and that's really the only thing I can see. They haven't done a ton to fix that issue from last year. I mean, they have the same exact running backs, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. They've also added Matt Breida, but he's not going to push.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the one thing I can see when I look at this team, because the rest of this roster is solid, and I like the defense, and they can certainly throw it. Now, I just don't want Josh Allen run the ball 10 times a game like he has been, because you're going to need him for 17.
There is a rumor up there. It was discussed with Jerry Jones of Buffalo potentially moving to Austin, Texas. I don't know if you heard about that. And I think that would be one of the creepiest things to do to a community that has been as loyal as they have been to the Bills. The Bills fans are about the most loyal fans there are in the NFL. And if this is a something to get a new stadium, I understand, whatever. I get these things they have to play, but I mean, don't play with these guys' hearts. I mean, Buffalo doesn't have much up there. They've got the Sabres in hockey, and they've got the Bills, and they're loyal as hell to both of those teams. And I wish these big time billionaires who own teams would stop playing with these guys' emotions. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, the city needs to come through and get them a new stadium. I mean, there's been a lot of political, NFL, all over the place pressure put on the city and put on that region to build them a new stadium. I mean, they've been playing several of their games up in Toronto. They've been, moving the home games around a little bit just to try and increase, the fan base up there. But I really do think they need to get a new stadium and keep the team where it is.
Yeah, I do too. And believe me, it's hard for me to think the Bagulas can't find some money somewhere. But anyways, to go on with the story, we think it's going to be Buffalo, and then Buffalo, Miami, and New England, and then the Jets somewhere down the line at the bottom, depending on what we see. It's going to be which Alabama quarterback takes the biggest step forward, I guess, in the next 17 weeks or 18 weeks of the season. Let's switch over to the AFC North, which I think is going to be among the most competitive, and we had it last year. We'll start at the bottom, your old stomping ground area, Cincinnati. We got Joe Burrow coming back, but still same coach. Not a lot of help around him. What do you think about Joe Burrow and coming back?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of weapons. I mean, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon is back and healthy. So I expect them to, score some points. I expect them to move the football. I expect Joe to be, pretty much on point from all accounts. He's healthy and ready to go. The question is, even if they're firing on all cylinders, does Zach Taylor know how to win? I'm not so certain of that. My criticism of that guy. I really don't get why he was selected to be the coach in the first place. And then I don't understand why he's got this leash that's 18 miles long when, if Marvin didn't win the Super Bowl, they were calling for him to be fired every year. But this guy, he just keeps getting paid. So we'll see. I'm not really sold on their defense to begin with. And, who knows if they'll be able to outscore everybody. I don't really see that happening, but they will do what they did last year, and that is win a couple games they shouldn't. when Joe Burrow's playing. That victory over the Titans that came down in the early part of last season, nobody really expected that, and they were able to outscore them because the Titans' defense is so bad. So if they get into a shoot match, they do have some pretty good options with their offense.
Yeah, but what about their offensive line?
I don't know if they've done enough to make it, to make it solid. I'm really not, a Jonah Williams supporter in the sense that I'm not certain that he is a guy that can be a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber kind of guy. I don't see that yet, or I haven't seen it yet. But have they done enough to keep him upright? We'll see. I don't know. Riley Reif, I think, is an upgrade at right tackle, but the middle is kind of what scares me.
And that's what everybody's talking about now is the big thing is up the middle, is the pass rush up the middle. Not so much the wings anymore as they're worried about keeping that pocket clean for these guys so they can step up and also keeping them off their knees. So,
well, and this is the guy, too, that isn't, that's not Lamar Jackson back there in the backfield. Joe Burrow is he's a pocket passer. So they're going to have to keep a pocket for him to throw from.
And then we got Pittsburgh. We got Ben. It's hard to get a read coming out of Pittsburgh with Ben. I guess they're hoping against hopes that he can stay healthy this year. He's got some help on the wide receiving side of it. The defense should be okay. We both respect Tomlin. What do you think about this Steel City?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as down on them as some other people are. I mean, a lot of people after the end of last season, are really down on the Steelers. I am not. I mean, I like Deontay Johnson. I love Juju. I like Chase Claypool. Eric Ebron, when he can catch it, is good. And then they got Pat Freiermuth to help with the tight end position. The biggest thing to me is their offensive line. This is a completely revamped and retooled offensive line. Dan Moore Jr. is probably going to start at left tackle. Okorafor is going to start at right tackle. You got Trey Turner at right guard, who didn't play really last year and was pretty much, let loose from the team the year before. And Kendrick Green now takes over at center. I'm not 100% sold on him. And Kevin Dotson's a guy that doesn't excite me either. So, I know they have Najee Harris, and I know that they've got a lot of weapons outside, but if he doesn't have time to throw the ball, they could be in trouble. So the offensive line is really my only cause of concern on the Steelers right now.
And we're going to find out very fast where Cleveland is because they face Kansas City right out of the box. They were talking about it all day long on TV. Big game for Baker, big game for the Browns. They came within 5 points of taking them out of the playoffs last year. You would hope with the people they brought in and the improvements they've seemingly made, they can make up that 5 points. And it is an important game for Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker, me, I'm a Baker fan. I have been since he stepped in on Texas Tech, as a walk-on. But he hasn't won a lot of big games. He hasn't. A lot of it's maybe not his fault, but in big games, some guys are blessed. Things happen and they win. And Baker hasn't shown that he can have those good things happen to him in a big game. The Browns, I mean, they should be right there, especially what we talked about with Baltimore before and how you broke down Baltimore and their running game problems. There's no excuses with the Cleveland Browns. They got the coach, they got the quarterback, they got the running game. They've got everything seemingly. What do you think? What could stop the Browns?
The Browns. I mean, that's really it. They're solid all the way through, and you talk about my concerns with Baltimore's lack of running backs now. I mean, I liked their running back room at the beginning of training camp, but now that two of them are on IR, I don't like them anymore. And, the Bengals and the Steelers both have issues with their offensive line. Cleveland does not. Their offensive line is as good as can be. And their running backs are the two best, the best tandem in the NFL, in my opinion, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And I like Demetric Felton from UCLA, who's backing them up and is kind of a third down guy. So wide receivers are solid. Their defense should be better. The pass rush should be improved, I think, with Jadeveon Clowney, Tack McKinley, and Myles Garrett. And then they added Malik Jackson in the offseason, as well as Tommy Tagaye from Ohio State. So I think this defense should be solid. And, the only thing that can stop them is them, because they have the roster now to compete with Kansas City. We'll see if they can beat them in week 1.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what happens. A little bit, so we'll go over Baltimore. We know their running game's a problem, but you do have Jackson at quarterback. You got a great tight end. What you break down of the Ravens, the rest of the team outside of their running backs?
Well, I like what they've done with their wide receiver group. Rashad Bateman is on injured reserve, so that's going to hurt them too. I mean, Miles Boykin is on injured reserve, so the Ravens are banged up right now. There's no other way to cut it. Justice Hill being lost, J.K. Dobbins is lost for the year, and Rashad Bateman and Miles Boykin being on IR. Those are both problems for them. I expected their wide receiver group to be better, but when their number 1 pick, first-round draft pick, Rashad Bateman's not even playing, we'll see if Sammy Watkins and Devin DuVernay can step up. But I'm a little bit concerned about the Ravens right now, whereas I was very high on them prior to all these injuries.
All right, so let's move down south. And Houston announced today that Tyrod Taylor is going to be their quarterback. How shocking is that? Poor Tyrod Taylor. It means he's going to take a beating for somebody else again. That team is just a mess right now. New coach, and I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Tyrod Taylor because he actually is a good football player. He's also a great guy. And, it's a shame that this is the shot that he's going to get to be a starter again is on this team, because, this team is a disaster. Deshaun Watson's holding them hostage, basically refusing to play. However, due to his legal issues, isn't available to be traded. So it's a nightmare, and I expect the Texans to suck. And, it's really not anybody on this team's fault except for the guy that doesn't want to play there. And I still am trying to figure out what his issues are with the team. They traded everybody away and he didn't really care. But then at the end of last season, he all of a sudden didn't want to play for them anymore after he took the money. I don't know. I'm confused as heck by that. And I'm also confused as to why the NFL won't do anything, because they're holding the Texans hostage too.
Yeah.
By not saying that he's suspended. Either suspend him or not suspend him at this point. I think enough's been learned.
Exactly. I mean, it's a shame because, Houston's going to be – they're going to take their beatings this year. They don't have any star quality down there at all to save them. There's not even a reason to buy a ticket to go see that team right now. So,
No.
And then we go over to Jacksonville. Mr. Meyer and Mr. Lawrence coming to town. Of course, Trevor Lawrence, I think eventually is going to be a very, very good quarterback, but he's a rookie this year. And with a rookie head coach, even though he's maybe one of the best college coaches of all time, what do you think about the Jags?
Well, I'm still a little bit confused as to what the hell they're doing too, because I kind of liked Gardner Minshew still being on this roster. I liked him being there to help Trevor Lawrence. I liked him being there in case Trevor gets hurt or heaven forbid he doesn't play well. Then you've got somebody else who's started games before and done fairly well. I'm not really in love with C.J. Beathard as much as they are. I saw enough of him in San Francisco to not want to see any more.
Right.
So, not real sure about that. And then, they've got injuries as well. Travis Etienne is done for the year. DJ Chark, I still haven't seen him yet. So they say he's going to play, but who knows? I think it's going to be a tough year for Jacksonville. They still do not have a roster where they can compete consistently with Indianapolis and Tennessee, who are the best teams in this division. But I do think Urban Meyer instills a winning attitude. Obviously, I like the guy, and there's no I don't try and hide that, but the he's a winner, and he's won everywhere he's ever been. So, until he loses, I'm gonna roll my dice, thinking that they're gonna come up as winners with him, sitting at the table.
And let's go over to Indianapolis. We both respect Reich. Last year, if things had fallen better in a certain situation, they were right there at the top of the AFC. I mean, they're a good team. They've got everything seemingly they need, except they're looking at a question at quarterback because they get Carson Wentz, and which Carson Wentz is he going to be? Is he going to be the Carson Wentz who started out with that MVP-like season when the Eagles won? Or is he going to be the guy we've seen over the last few years who seemingly is not even as good as he was in North Dakota?
Well, yeah, and is he even going to be there? I mean, that's the real question with him is availability. He's was on the COVID list last week and couldn't even practice, and that was right after he was able to come back to practice after the surgery. So, who knows what you're going to get with this guy if he shows up. Great. If he does show up, does he play well? Who the hell knows? I have no idea, but we'll see. I mean, they're rolling the dice with him, and they're gonna, keep Jacob Eason as the backup in case things don't go well, or Carson isn't able to play. So I'm not sure. This is a big time gamble by Frank Reich, I think, and we're gonna see if it pays off.
Not that he's even in the picture, but is Ellinger gone for the year? I know he busted.
He's on injured reserve right now. I don't think he's necessarily done for the year because you can come back.
But it's half a year, right?
Yeah, IR, the rules have changed, so he's eligible to come back, but he's hurt right now and is not on the active roster.
All right, so but I mean, the rest of it, they got a solid running game. They got the wide receivers. They got the defense. They got the offensive line for sure. And they got a guy who's a good strategist as an offensive coach in Reich. So we'll see.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to remember that Anthony Costanzo anchored that left tackle position for 10 years, and he's gone. True. And Eric Fisher, there's no guarantees that he's going to be ready to go week one. I mean, there's talk that he may play, but there's no guarantee that he's going to be ready. And if he is ready, what does he look like? I don't know. T.Y. Hilton is on injured reserve as well because he wasn't able to come back from the surgery he had. So they're going to be missing him, and they're going to be expecting a lot out of Paris Campbell, the old Ohio State player who I thought was destined to be a tremendous pro, and he's been nothing but an injury list guy since he got there.
And now we go back down to your neck of the woods right now, Tennessee. You got Henry. Quarterback's been a little bit of a question mark right now. What about their defense?
Yeah, I mean that's really the question mark on this team is their defense. Can they be better than they were last year? We'll see. They got Bud Dupree. He should help them a little bit on the outside, but he's coming off a knee injury, a pretty substantial knee injury. So there's no for sure saying that he's going to increase that pass rush right away. And I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach with this defense because they were god awful last year and could not even get off the field on third down. So we'll see what happens. Right now, their number one draft pick was Caleb Farley, and he's not on their starting lineup in their depth chart. So, what the hell did you draft that guy with your number one pick if he's not even going to start for you? Janoris Jenkins and Christian Fulton are slated to be the starting corners. Farley will play, but if he couldn't even win the starting job, how much is he going to help right away?
Not a good sign. And then we got to go out west now with we'll start at the bottom, and a team I'm looking at right now because they're facing the Giants first week, which is the Denver Broncos. Teddy Bridgewater is a professional quarterback. I mean, I don't know if he's somebody who'll be a franchise quarterback, probably not, but he's a bridge quarterback. Bridgewater, aptly named. So he's going to give him stability on that side of the line, and they've got their defense. But you got Vic Fangio, who hasn't proven to be as good a head coach as he was maybe a defensive coordinator, and they're in one of the toughest divisions in football. So, what do you think for the Broncos?
Yeah, I mean, from all I've heard, Von Miller is not yet, 100%. I mean, he's supposed to be ready to play, but we'll see if he's the same guy. That's what they need is Bradley Chubb and Von Miller to be the guys they were a couple of years ago. But, it's a couple of years later, so we'll see what that looks like. But they're going to be counting on their defense. I mean, Bridgewater is who he is. I think he'll make less mistakes than Drew Lock. I think he'll have less turnover-worthy throws. But, we'll see. Cortland Sutton missed almost the entire last year, and Jerry Jeudy did not really live up to expectations. So this team is kind of a question mark to me all the way around.
And then we're going to go out to Vegas. The Raiders, and it just always strikes me because growing up as a kid, the Raiders you could pencil them into 10 wins every year, whether it be Madden, whether it be Tom Flores, whether it be Stabler, whether it be Plunkett. They were just so consistently a good team. And since Gruden's first go round out there, they just can't seem to get out of their own way.
Yeah, I did like the signing this week where they picked up KJ Wright. He's played with this defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, before. He's played in his system. So, even though he's only been on the team for 2 weeks, he should be ready to go and probably get some playing time. The question marks are going to be these other guys they brought in, Quentin Jefferson, Solomon Thomas, Gerald McCoy. Is Klein Farrell going to take a step forward? What does Yannick Ngakoue have left? We'll see if Gus Bradley can get this defense to come around because they've proven they can score points. The offense has been good enough, and I think the offensive line will be decent enough to help them, score points and continue to score points. It's just, can they stop anybody? Because last year they could not.
And now we go to two of the best young quarterbacks right now in football. We'll start with LA with Justin Herbert. He opened a lot of eyes, including me last year, when I did not expect him to step in and be what he was and how fast he just improved. He reminded me of Josh Allen in his game because he's got everything, but he's a little bit more patient in the pocket than Josh Allen is. He's a big boy. He can run. He can throw. He knows the game. New coach, what do you think?
He didn't surprise me at all. As you recall, and anyone can go on our website and pull up the tapes of our shows prior to the draft. I thought he was the best quarterback in the draft, and I was shocked that he wasn't, thought to be the number one pick in the draft because I thought he had proven to have all the skills. And as you can also pull up the tapes from our preview show last year, I thought he should be starting day one instead of Tyrod Taylor because this was one situation where I was like, this guy's going to be your quarterback. You're not expected to go in the playoffs. Let him play right now. So this was the one situation where I thought the guy should start from the beginning, but whatever. I do like their offensive line a lot better this year. I like their draft pick, Rashawn Slater. They got Corey Linsley. They've got Brian Bulaga now at right tackle. So I think this team will be better. My one question mark is their coach. Obviously, he's a first-time head coach, and that's always kind of up in the air until you see what they can do. But the defense should be better, and they definitely have a good quarterback. So we'll see what happens. But I expect the Chargers to be a team closer to 500 this year. With all the pieces they brought in.
And now we got the Chiefs. What can you say? Back-to-back Super Bowls, a win and a loss in the Super Bowl, a tricky loss the year before in the AFC Championship game. Right now, they've been in the top of the AFC for the last 3.5, 4 years. Prohibitive favorites to win it again. You got Mahomes right now. I don't know if you can even say when he's going to go into the best years of his career because he's so young and he seems to get better every year. All the weapons he's got. I don't know. I can't see a downside to Kansas City. You talked about the Browns. The only thing that can stop the Browns is themselves. I think the only thing that can stop the Chiefs is themselves.
Yeah, no, I like everything they did in the offseason. I really do. Their offensive line, they retooled, pretty much from the ground up. And I loved the trade for Orlando Brown. I think he's going to be a really good player for them. The drafting of Trey Smith in the 6th round, it seems like they hit a home run with that, as he's now their starter. And they've got guys, that are backups that can come in. Mike Remmers has played ball before. Andrew Wiley has played some football and played pretty well. So they're solid at the offensive line. Not only do they have good starters, but they've got 2 good swing tackles. And, my only question with them is their wide receivers. They've got Tyreek Hill. They've got Travis Kelce. But what else do they have? Can Pringle and Hardman provide, stability and consistency? We'll see. They're big play guys, but can they actually run the right routes every time? I think that's been their one, the one negative that you could have for those 2 guys is sometimes they don't know where they're supposed to be.
What about the running back from LSU? Is he healthy again, or what?
He's actually a little bit banged up right now. Edwards-Helaire has been, that's been his only problem since he's been in the NFL is just been banged up, and Darrell Williams is also banged up. So, we might see a big dose of Jerick McKinnon against the Browns, and I like Jerick McKinnon, but he might be the only running back available, and that worries me.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to take some of the pressure off Mahomes. You can't have him just sitting back there throwing all day long because then you become predictable, and so they're going to have to have some remnants of a running game, and you don't want him to be a runner. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do this first week against the Browns. Like I said, that could be a preview of the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, the Browns and the Chiefs, and then the Patriots and the Dolphins. Those are the 2 best games, in my opinion, or the 2 games that I'm wanting to see the most, just to see those 2 teams. Probably third would be the Saints and the Packers, but those 2 games are probably the ones that are going to be watching the closest.
All right, and we got Tampa Bay. The one thing people will be focusing on is Tampa Bay and Dallas out of the box. Is Tampa Bay starting to become as hated as Dallas with the attention they're getting?
I hate them as much. Yeah. This will be the one time all year that I actually cheer for the Cowboys. I'm so sick of hearing about how great Tom is. And, it is what it is, but you know what? We'll see. It's tough to do it 2 years in a row. And, now everybody's going to be gunning for them. So we'll see if they can repeat. But, the Cowboys are going to be in for a pretty rough night, I think, just because Dak hasn't played, down of football in the preseason. He really hasn't practiced that much. And it's hard to develop timing with guys if you never throw to them. So I think this game's got Tommy written all over it.
I think I'll tell you. I think in this is the game that Dallas has got to be very careful in this game with Dak because that pass rush he's going to face a pass rush that he hasn't faced in years.
I wouldn't have him playing in this game. I wouldn't have him anywhere near the field in this game. I mean, he's still got the scars from the bone sticking out of his ankle. His shoulder's been a mess. He lost his brother. I mean, this has been a rough offseason for him. And considering he hasn't been out on the practice field or played in one preseason snap, I wouldn't have him anywhere near the field in this game. This is just spelling JPP and, Shaq Barrett. These guys are going to be able to tee off. The thing is that even if Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett don't sack you, who's to say Levante David and Devin White don't knock the crap out of you?
And how about their nose guards? How about their nose? The guy, the defensive tackle with the weird last name,
Vita Vea.
Yeah, I mean,
Vita Vea is a badass. They've got Ndamukong Suh. They've got William Goldston. I mean, their defensive line is very, very good, and I think their linebackers are the best in football. So good luck playing these guys week one when you have not played with your own team in the entire preseason.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the end of the show tonight, but we will be back on Thursday night with our picks for the year. Who we think is going to win each division, who we think is going to be the playoffs, and we'll even maybe throw a Super Bowl pick at you. Plus, it will be the first night of the No Doubt Nate picks of the week.
Yeah, man, it's time to get going. We've got the NFL, we've got college football is already going, and now we've got the NFL stepping up. So everybody wanted football, and here it is. Hopefully, Louisville, I'm going to be cheering for them to beat down Lane Kiffin tonight because that would be fun to see.
Isn't Lane Kiffin so easy to root against? There's just nothing about that guy that's redeeming.
There's nothing about him that I like except for when he loses. That's the only thing I enjoy about him is watching.
And I feel sorry for Ole Miss because, I there's a place in my heart for Ole Miss because when I was a little kid, I saw Archie Manning play there. And, I just watching Archie play when he played in college was something. And then this team has been kind of battered by the SEC for most of their time. And, every once in a while they get a good team together, but I know I'm going to have a tough time rooting for them, even though I do root for them with Lane Kiffin on their sideline. So, all right, we will say goodnight, and we will be back at 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Nate, enjoy the game tonight. I'll be enjoying it too. And both the Yankees and Mets dropped it this afternoon, so there'll be no baseball to watch. So we got that going on tonight. Thank God.
All righty then. Enjoy the evening and go Cardinals.
Go Cardinals.